everyone knows how passionate you are for the club. Just how did it come about?
Well, Peter, I've been supporting the club now for well on 40 years, and eventually the last few years I went to every single game, home and away. We had a great friendship with the United fans, and I think in actual fact I came in here for two purposes. One was I thought I would create something better on the park, which perhaps we haven't done so far, and the other one was I thought off the park we could improve matters by opening up the shares, starting a trust with the fans and so on. So we have succeeded on nearly all the matters off the park. We will fail so far as to produce the goods on the park. Having said that, we haven't been much worse than in prior seasons, but that's not good enough for a club such as Dundee United.
Now, of course, it's cost you personally out of your own pocket, hasn't it?
Yes, well, it's cost a lot of money, but I mean, as far as the investment is concerned, people say what's the result of the investment? Well, it's not real investment. It really was just put in based on the way my heart felt, which is I want to look after the United. But the only return I'm looking for is on the park. I'm not looking, and there's absolutely no chance of getting a dividend in terms of money in any way whatsoever. I'd be very fortunate to get any of the money, the millions I put in, to get any of that back. But that doesn't matter if we can just get results and performances on the park, which we're not getting there yet.
Has being involved now for the time that you have altered your views on the club or the supporters or your own feelings for the club?
Yeah, it's difficult. You have a different kind of relationship with the club when you're chairman, chief shareholder and also a fan. United, perhaps, Peter, I've never ever had that before, because unfortunately I started off 51% of the shares and I've ended up now with 82% as of today. That wasn't deliberate at all. It's just I've kept putting money in and signing loans of shares, and I've reached this stage that it's a ridiculous amount. So you've got this different feeling. You're thinking in terms of a chairman, you're looking for success for the club, but basically at the end of the day I'm still a fan. And you know, when we win a game at the end of the season, the first thing I'm thinking about are points and the fans, and then maybe about half an hour later I think, wait a minute, that's another place, you get another 70,000 in place. So it's a fan I react all the time. When you're asking me how I feel about the club and the fans, I think we're the greatest fans, you know, in Scotland. I suppose a lot of chairmen could say it, but are there a lot of chairmen in reality are really the fans of that particular club? I mean, there's people move around from one club. If you went through the whole of Scottish football, you would probably have a hard job finding someone who's got the kind of percentage I've got and also being a basic fan as I am. So, yeah, things have changed. It's been hard for us because we haven't had the results on the park. Off the park, we've succeeded. On the park, definitely not. Next season, let's go from there.
Some might say that you've got a reputation for being impatient. You've gone through four managers. Do you feel that's justified?
No, I don't think that in any way that I'm impatient. All I want is success for the D United, and to be quite honest, I don't really care how we get it as long as we get it.
I mean, given the high spots that the club reached in the 80s, I mean, the scenario these days is very much different. Unfortunately, it's hard to see that being achieved, but how far do you think we can actually go?
There's absolutely no comparison to the 80s. We had lads who were struggling to get in the team because there was Paul Sturrock playing the first team or even Band, whatever. We had lads struggling to get in their place who were well near internationals, so it's a different ball game altogether. But we should try to and continue to attempt to get in the top six every year, because we are the sixth biggest club in Scotland. If you want to do a calculation based on attendances, based on income, based on anything, we actually come in sixth. So that's where we should be, and we certainly didn't achieve it the last two seasons. We did it the season before. Unfortunately, Peter, as you know, you've been around a long time yourself, the number of times, long before I came in, under various managers, we've seen us just scraping through the end of the season, just staying up. You know, we've been at Easter Road, we scraped through 2-1, I can remember. St Johnstone down 2-0 at half time, I think, and we won 3-2. Various situations like that. And again, this last season, well, not the season that ended, the season before that, we had the situation up at Inverness when we felt we had to win that game. As so happens we didn't have to, but again, we were just right at the very end. Six is the place we've got to aim for, but I've been told by the fans to be careful, and I was just listening to Brian Taylor on the radio. He was on the ball or something there last week, and he was just saying, Ed, now don't be trigger happy and give Craig a chance and so on. So we will have to give him a chance. It may take a couple of years for us to succeed in what we're trying to do. Certainly, the results so far at the end of the season just finished were atrocious as far as I'm concerned. But next season is totally fresh, and myself and the board and the fans, everybody's got to get behind Craig Brewster and give him every encouragement to make the United successful again. But we'll not get back to the 80s.
With the advantage of hindsight, what would you probably change about the way you've done things in your time here?
Yeah, well, I think we've stretched the bank account too much, which has really stretched my own bank account by that as well, unfortunately. And the reason for that was believing managers when they said to me certain individuals coming into the club would do things for the club, which unfortunately they failed to do. And it was always a case of the next player coming in, oh, he's the man I need in midfield, or he's the man that's a playmaker, he's the man I need up front, or this man, he'll just round the whole thing off. And I did all that, and in most cases the majority didn't make it. They haven't been that bad, but for the kind of money we paid, we didn't get the return on investment anywhere whatsoever. That's going to change. I think Craig Brewster's got a different attitude altogether, and I know he's got a different attitude, and we're going to be lowering the basic wage. So the task has been bigger, and as far as hindsight's concerned, I think I would be a lot more careful if we started again on the wage levels which we gave. And I also think I've learned quite a lot how to handle agents. And I mean, to give you an idea, there's a number of players we're trying to get out at the moment. Perhaps 3 or 4 years ago we might have just given them a cheque. Today it's a case of, whatever they get we spread over the next 12 months of the period of the contract they're missing out from. And we take into the tax advantages. And we also would probably deduct the kind of earnings they get from the next club. So I'm definitely getting a lot tougher now with agents and players, which is to the good of the club, I would think.
What made you decide on Craig Brewster as manager?
Yeah, I've always admired Craig Brewster, not only as a manager but also a player, and I think it's worth saying, people may think it's strange that we brought him to Tannadice not only as a manager but also as a player, because he was exceptional last 2-3 seasons, and I think even next season, 06-07, we'll still get something out of him regardless of his age. I think he'll be 40 coming up next year. Unfortunately, he sustained that injury, and boy, could we have done with him during the latter half of last season. But as a manager, he did remarkably well at Inverness with little cash and little income, and he proved just what he can do with, what would you say, perhaps above average players compared to some of the more established players that we previously had at Tannadice. I think his attitude will be totally different from the attitude we've had before. I don't think he's looking for established players to come in here and then perhaps fail at Dundee United. I think he's looking for hungrier players to come in and establish himself at Tannadice by being a player at Tannadice and establish himself as a player in Scottish football, rather than, unfortunately, other managers have said, Chairman, let's bring him in, he's done a good job with whoever club it may be, and the majority have not made it at Tannadice. So, Craig, I've got full trust with him. We can't talk in terms of a short-term fix here. We've got to think in terms of the long-term, and it may take 2-3 years before we establish ourselves as a regular top 6 contender in the SPL.
Is that a target you set him?
Yes, but I don't want to make that what would you say, an ultimatum. You don't want to do that, because it could very well be that next season you'll be 8th and the following season be 5th, and then we move on from there. The unfortunate thing with United is, any time we have actually been quite good and got a good position in the league, it's there, and the following year, back down there again, back in the depths, and then back up and then back down. There's been no sustainable development of our level in Scottish football for as long as I can remember, back to the great McLean days of the 80s. You'd have to go back for that. So it's a long-term investment in Craig Brewster. He's a fitness fanatic, he appears to be a disciplinarian, and he can also get more out of above average players than what we'd anticipate. So that's what we're looking for from Craig next season.
So he'll be given time?
Correct, to be given time, yep.
I mean, you mentioned the manager there. As a manager, has he just simply met the expectations you had of him before you gave him the job, or has he enhanced his reputation in your eyes by his working methods?
The big smile comes on my face there, and the reason for that is I was vastly disappointed with the results and the performances at the end of last season. Everybody knows that, but it wasn't Craig's team. What I have seen in him, I admire. He seems to be a disciplinarian, and he believes by having a discipline then we'll get better performances. He's certainly a fitness fanatic. He's proved up at Inverness what he can do with what I would call above average players. I think he can do the same with us. I was disappointed last season. I think he's going to turn that right around for us this season. I think we'll be surprised, and we'll see a lot better performances, and we'll see a lot more determination from the players he's picking to put on the park, his team.
Has your perception of professional football players changed in the time that you've been chairman of this football club?
Yes, it has, but I'd have to be very careful what I say in front of a camera. It definitely has changed. Let me put it in a nice way. The players are certainly very well looked after at Tannadice in terms of the watered and fed and so on and so forth. Also given transport, given massive holidays, and they only train for a couple of hours a day, and therefore on that basis I would expect better performances from them. So I'm smiling there when you ask me about professional players. They're not all like that. I mean, I can think of, for example, Mark Wilson went to Celtic. I remember saying to the Celtic chief exec, he is going to do well because he's just an excellent professional. He did everything the club ever wanted. It's not just a case of playing. Sometimes you need players to go and meet the fans. You need players to go to hospitals. You need players to sign things and so on. And you can tell the players who are really interested in the club, and will do that for you.
How long do you see yourself staying in the position of chairman at this football club?
That's a good question, yeah. Assuming my health is okay, my intention is to stay as long as possible, and the club, fortunately or unfortunately, needs me right at this point in time. But we've got to get to the point where the club doesn't need me from a financial basis. That's very, very important. So if anything ever happened to me, the club just carries on. Well, haven't we seen, just a few hundred yards up the road, what can happen if we get in the wrong financial situation? We've also seen at other clubs in Scotland. So I'm avoiding that by the help I'm giving to the club. But when we get to the point of better performance on the park, getting some results that please the fans, and getting to a break-even stage in the P&L account, then I'll be satisfied with the job I've done well. I'm anything but satisfied with what I've done so far.
And now that you've been in the job for, as chairman for 3 years, what lessons have you learned?
Oh, lots of lessons. I think the key lesson I've learned is not to listen to managers that we can create and buy a team by just getting various people. I mean, one of the managers, I think at one point, if you looked at living on the park, we'd probably brought in and bought in every single one of them. We need to develop some of the younger ones. The only young one that's come through that I can remember absolutely clearly was Mark Wilson. Unfortunate to let Mark go because of the phase, the bit in his contract. Gary Kenneth has come through. We've got one or two other laddies starting to come through now. Cameron's coming through, Gardner's coming through, and young Easton was exceptional last 15-20 minutes of Motherwell in the last game of the season. These are the boys for the future. So I've learned, if there's one thing I've learned, Peter, you cannot buy a team.
And the fans obviously have got a part to play in this.
Well, there's nothing like the fans. I felt the fans were very quiet at the end of the season, but then what can you expect? The results are so poor that quite a number had left before the games were actually, with about 10 or 15 minutes to go. That was our fault by the performance and the results we're giving on the park. But the fans play a tremendous part, and there were one or two games. There's one game I really don't want to talk about, but I'll mention it. That was the one game we had in Europe here at Tannadice. We got into the European, the UEFA Cup by the back door, as you know, through the Cup final. We went to Finland, played reasonably well, could have won it, come back nothing each. We're 2-0 up, and then just totally collapsed, 2-2, and down we went. But the fans that night, about 11,000 turned up. They were all United fans, which is fantastic support for our club. And the atmosphere was electric. And I was so disappointed at the end of the game to see the kids coming out with tears and so on. I think everybody in the club knows I disappeared. I couldn't face coming into the boardroom. I disappeared for at least half an hour, went away in the dark in a corridor along there. And if anybody had come near me that night, I think, I don't know what I would have done. But you're asking about the fans. That was one night that the fans proved they could come out, and there were fantastic atmospheres, fantastic encouragement, and the team failed them, unfortunately. This really concerns me. We get the fans there and we keep failing them. We've got to get the fans there and get success.
Well, hopefully we'll see nights like that again in the future.
It may take a while, but yeah, they were great nights.